my favorite time to write is at 4 in the morning. So I would write from 4 till 7, then get ready for work and go to work. And I did that basically my whole career, without ever really sharing that with my employer. Because I always thought, well, they might not take me seriously if they think I'm doing this. When I did retire, I've been I'm as aggressive about submitting plays. And you'd be shocked at how many, there's thousands of opportunities across America, Europe. I've been produced in India, I mean, in Switzerland, in England. I've had now it's up to 200 productions of not all full length. Some are like parts of play festivals and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's been exciting. It's been really fun.
Welcome to Second Act Stories. Every 2 weeks, we take a look at people who've made major life and career changes and are pursuing more rewarding lives in a second act. I'm your host, Andy Levine.
And I'm Scott Merritt, Andy's co-host today. So, Andy, you and I have one big thing in common. We both love the theater.
We do.
For this week's episode, you sat down with a guy who's now a playwright, which has to be super interesting. But that guy, Donald Loftus, used to be a corporate chieftain. So tell me about how he went from the boardroom to becoming a playwright.
So Donald has had a really interesting 40-year career. He's been in the luxury beauty industry for most of his life. He has served as the U.S. president of Procter & Gamble Prestige, well as Cosmopolitan Cosmetics and Sanofi Beauty. But since the 9th grade, his passion has always been the theater. And since retiring from the corporate world in 2018, he now has worked as a full-time playwright.
Man, those theater roots run deep. So here's Donald Loftus's second act story, which starts us in Cleveland, Ohio.
So I grew up in a really modest family. My father worked for the Chevy plant, and my mother worked part-time at Sears. We were really sort of lower middle class, I would say, and then he left us. My dad deserted the family. My mom had 3 kids, my 2 sisters and I. We were incredibly poor. My mother was working in the receiving room at Sears for minimum wage. She had 3 kids to raise, a house payment to make, and so on and so forth. And I remember I had 3 shirts. Which is very funny when I think about my fashion business. I had one in the closet, one in my back, and one in the wash at all times.
Donald was a mediocre C student from grades 1 through 8. But a change came when he hit the 9th grade.
There was a 9th grade English teacher who also directed the school plays. I had really not done anything to that point. And she she sort of adopted me. And she was taking a group of kids to New York City for the 9th grade class. And I think I forget how much, I think it was like $1,000 or so. It might have been $100 million. I mean, for us, And she invited me to go. We had done Oliver, the musical, and I played Mr. Bumble, and she liked me. So she invited me to go. But that was an impossibility for my mother. I mean, we just didn't have that kind of money. So the school teacher hired me. And I would clean her blackboards at the end of the day and help her grade tests and so on and so forth. And then she paid for my trip to New York. We saw 4 Broadway shows that absolutely changed my life. I became a straight A student. I totally changed. I had a whole different group of friends. I did all the school shows. I used to do community theater and so on and so forth. And I became a totally different person.
After high school, Donald went on to Cleveland State University for a dual degree in theater and business. And then he immediately began a long career in retail and luxury beauty. He started as a buyer for the May department store companies in Cleveland, Ohio, and worked there for a decade. But it was a position with the well-known beauty company Estee Lauder, which finally brought him to the East Coast.
So they hired me, and I moved to Boston, which was one step closer to New York City, and I managed New England for Estee Lauder. And then, and loved it. I mean, Leonard Lauder is a hero of mine. And then about 4 years later, one of their executives left and went to Saint Laurent. And then she got promoted and hired me as the VP of sales. So that was my first New York job. And I was thrilled to be here. That was my goal, since 9th grade was to live in New York City. So, and then from there,
it was the goal to be closer to the theater world?
Yeah, I was thrilled to be a vice president of a of Saint Laurent and all this kind of stuff. It was really very exciting. But what was most exciting was I lived in New York and go to the theater as often as I wanted to. And fortunately, my wife is also a theater and music nut, so she was right there with me and totally supportive of all this. And then I was just really lucky in my career. The president left, the company got sold to Sanofi, which is a French pharmaceutical company. Then I became executive vice president of that company, and all this was like with 2 and 3 year increments. It was just crazy fast for somebody who was a C student.
The highlight of Donald's career was a 10-year position as president of Procter & Gamble Prestige Brands.
The most rewarding was Procter & Gamble. We had pretty much every brand you can think of. We had Dolce & Gabbana and Gucci and Vera Wang and just a million brands. It was fascinating and all grist for the playwriting mill, because in these jobs I dealt with celebrities like Rihanna, Jay-Z, Sean John, those kind of people, the top models, fashion models, the designers themselves were fascinating, and each one so completely different.
Tell us about your process for writing.
My favorite time to write is at 4 a.m. So I would write from 4 till 7, then get ready for work and go to work. And I did that basically my whole career without ever really sharing that with my employer, because I always thought, well, they might not take me seriously if they think I'm doing this. When I did retire, I'm as aggressive about submitting plays, and you'd be shocked at how many. There's thousands of opportunities across America, Europe. I've been produced in India. I mean, in Switzerland, in England. I've had now it's up to 200 productions of not all full length. Some are like parts of play festivals and that sort of thing. So it's been exciting. It's been really fun.
So you're in a very high powered job. I assume very financially rewarding as well.
Mm-hmm.
And you're continuing to do this playwriting at 4 to 7 a.m.
Yeah,
like
for a lot less money.
Several days a week, or
yeah, pretty much every day. And in addition to writing new stuff, I'm also I run a group on Tuesday nights called Pages, which is a group. It started fairly, maybe 50 people. We would meet in a studio in New York every Tuesday night. When COVID came, we went on Zoom. We now have over 200 members. We have people as far away as New Zealand and Italy, a lot of people in California and all over the country, actors and playwrights. And we meet every week on Zoom on Tuesday nights from 6 to 10. And then we've just now started the first Tuesday of every month we meet live. But 12 playwrights a week get to do scenes. They use the actors from the group, and then there's a discussion after their scene from the group on, did it work? Where was I confused? And so it really helps everyone develop. It also exposes us to actors who then we hire for roles if we get produced somewhere, or at least recommend them. And then so that's my Tuesday night group, and they're terrific.
What does a day look like for you now? You write. Well, just tell me. How do you approach the playwriting thing?
Yeah, so I usually wake up at 4ish, and primarily because the world is asleep. It's just the best time. My wife is asleep. The neighborhood's asleep. It's very quiet. And I usually write from 4 till 7, and it can be cleaning up an old script. It could be, and I have so many plays and musicals and whatever that I can, depending on my mood that day. If I want to do something that's comedy, I pull that up. If I want to do something, I probably like best the heavy dramas. I love those probably the best, and so I work a lot on those. And then I also usually that's 4 till 7, and then it's hard to write because then there's noise and talking and whatever. And then I spend a few hours a day submitting. So I have playwright friends going, God, you get produced so much. I never get produced. How many submissions have you made this month? Well, none. Okay, well, let's see. It's never going to happen for you.
Is this from your background in sales?
I think so. It's just the same drive and blood pressure, whatever that I always had. And I submit, I would say on average, and I keep really good records. So I know if it's been who accepted, who rejected, and for the past 5 years. And I probably submit 30 to 50 a month.
What's it like seeing your work performed?
It's nerve-wracking. It's gotten easier, But the first time, I felt like an expectant father because you're sitting in the back of the house and you're watching the audience and you're thinking, oh wow, that line didn't land, and they didn't get that joke, and so you what you tend to do. Tennessee Williams rewrote things after he won the Pulitzer Prize. He rewrote the play. It's never done, and so you after you experience it in front of an audience, you will probably go home and edit it and rewrite lines or scenes or whatever.
What makes a great playwright a great playwright?
I think losing your ego. I mean, you really, it's lovely to hear, oh, I really liked it. That was wonderful. What's so much more helpful is to say, I was totally lost at the end of Act One. Why would the father do that when he just said that he wouldn't, or whatever that might be? They have to have insight. I think they have to understand people and sort of have compassion for people, but they also have to lose the ego because you are going to get criticized. You are going to get rejection. I mean, I talk about how proud I am of 200 productions. That's after 2,000 submissions. I mean, there's a lot of, sorry, your play was not selected in that as well. And you just have to let that go.
So take you a little different direction here, Donald. What advice would you give to someone who's thinking about leaving Act One, as you've described it, and moving on to Act Two and pursuing their passion full time?
I think it's, I feel lucky because financially, I would not be able to do this if I didn't have a background in business, because there's no money in this at all. I mean, I may have made a couple of $1,000s or something. There's really not. Hopefully someday it goes to Broadway and, then we sell the movie rights and blah, blah, blah. But probably not. So, but I think that it's very important to know what your passion is, what is it that you've always dreamed of doing, and then just doing it. If you're still working, make sure that you're doing what you can to set yourself up financially so that you'll be able to enjoy that next act of your life. I have friends who have interests and just decided to sit and watch MSNBC instead all day long, and it's not healthy.
So you're now 69 years old, if my research is correct.
That is
here.
correct.
I don't see any sign of you slowing down. It seems like you're loving what you're doing.
I do.
And how long do you hope to be writing for?
I hope to be writing for a good long time. I look at life as a play almost. Act One is where the lead character you're discovering, which is you are the lead character in this play, and you're discovering what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, what are your goals, what are your dreams, what's getting in that way of that, what challenges are thrown at you to prevent you from reaching those dreams, and then the intermission comes, which is your retirement. Act Two is what happens as a result of all that learning and growing and challenges. Does our hero or heroine survive and win in the end, and so on. And so I think that. And I think we have to change our thinking now that we're living longer. Because in the past, it was sort of like, yeah, someday I'll retire and then I'll die. And it's not that anymore. It's like someday I'll retire and then I will have an Act Two that's going to be very exciting and active, and I'm going to really enjoy it. I'm going to travel. I'm going to, whatever it is that you're into. My warning to people who are in the beginnings of Act One is it goes very fast. Act One is very fast. And you like when I was reviewing my resume today, preparing for this interview, I thought, wow, that I can't believe that happened that many years ago. It goes by very, very fast. And as I say, because in Act Two, particularly if you've retired, it's all your time. That whole block of time is yours. Hopefully you're healthy and can enjoy it to its fullest, but prepare for it. And know the first one's going to be over before you know it, and it's going to be intermission. And Act Two is going to start, and you have to prepare for it and go after it, and don't accept any blockades.
Well, bravo, Andy. Another great interview, and there's, I don't think, another true second act story that's so much a second act story. I love it.
This is a big leap. It really was fun sitting down with Donald. I've enjoyed the theater for a long time. I did some acting in both high school as well as some directing and acting in college. So it really was fun to sit down and interview him.
Well, as I always do, I have some questions about your interview with him, and I'm hoping you can answer them.
I am equally hoping. So go ahead, hit me with them.
Okay, so Donald has been a playwright for 50 or more years. That's the truth, right? He started a long time ago, even though for the first 40, he kind of kept things private and didn't really tell anybody about it. How did he manage all of that while he was also balancing a high-pressure executive job?
He was able to really split the two jobs. Between 4 and 7 in the morning, that was his time to write. And, that was sort of the start of the day for him. And I would imagine then he took a shower and it sort of switched gears. And I'm going to be the president of a major beauty company. And so, I think he just sort of cut the work in half in terms of, this is my hobby, what I do in the morning, and then I go to work. And he was able to make it work.
Well, that's incredible for so many reasons, but as somebody who's definitely not a morning person, 4 a.m. it's barely even the middle of the night. It's kind of the start of my night. So being up at that hour and being productive and then writing until 7 and then going to a demanding and challenging job, for me, would be a recipe for disaster. How in the world did he make it work?
Well, he clearly is a disciplined person and also an intense person. He did make it work. It was kind of funny. I did ask him, now that you're retired, are you still writing at 4 a.m.? He said, yes, that's my time to write. But he did confess that he takes a mid-afternoon nap to help get him through the day now.
I love the sound of a mid-afternoon nap. I would do that every day if I could. So I want to see more of Donald's work. Where do I have to go to do that?
You want to go to his website, www.donaldloftus.com. There's some videos of his work. There's also some radio plays that have been produced. And I'd encourage you to check out all his plays. They're amazing.
I'm going to, and I hope everybody listening does too. So, Andy, thanks so much for bringing Donald to us. What a great second act in every sense of the word, truly. Let's get it wrapped up.
All right, so this is going to be our last episode for 2023, but you can look forward to some great new episodes and best of episodes in January of 2024. We're also going to try and introduce more video content in the year ahead, so stay tuned for that.
Yeah, nobody wants to see us more than our listeners.
I'm not sure that's true, but anyway, they will get to see us now.
Well, if you like what you're hearing and eventually seeing on Second Act Stories, we definitely hope you'll share the podcast with friends and family. And we want you to subscribe and to like us on Facebook and LinkedIn and all the fun places, and review us. Review us wherever you're listening and subscribe.
We hope you will keep listening. There are more Second Act Stories just around the corner.